Well, welcome. I'm Noah.
I'm Colin.
This is our new show called Conversations from a Futon. Most importantly, though, you are you, and you are here. So, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about the Russian doping. So, let's just jump right into it then, I'd say, right?
Let's.
All right. So we're going to start by talking probably about the most important time in Russian doping, the 2014 Olympic Games. Would you say that's big? So 2014 Olympic Games, Winter Games in Sochi, Russia. Shocking, the Russian doping scandal has to do with the Russian Olympics. So, at the 2014 Games, Russia has been accused of a major doping scandal that took place. I wouldn't even say scandal as much as I'd say a doping conspiracy.
Right.
So what happened here was flashback to Russian Olympic Games. Also, it worked. Whatever they did, it worked. They won 33 medals, with 13 of them being gold, which is a lot.
More medals than I'd say most countries win in an Olympic Games.
I don't know if they won the overall medal count, but they had to be close if they didn't. I'm going to assume they did because, yep, they definitely did. So, back to the games. So, the way doping works and the way testing works, especially in these games, was you'd have this building. And in the building, you'd have a room that is a secured room. This room is where your WADA testing would be done, which is the World Anti-Doping Agency. We talk about them a lot. They're very important in this. So, you'd have a room where WADA testing would be done. The president of the lab in Russia, Gregory Rodchenkov, hard name to say, he's the one where we get most of our information from here. Very good primary source himself. He tells the story of how they do this. So, what they do is they'd have a secured room. They'd have an unsecured room next door. They'd have WADA agents not affiliated with Russia at all outside the secured room, making sure that only samples were going in and out and only approved people were going in and out, that athletes weren't going in and out and unknown people weren't going in and out of this very secured room. So what they do is the athletes would give two samples, one that would be stored, one that would be tested. Before the samples that were being tested right away were tested, what they do is there was a hole in the wall behind a filing cabinet. So what they do is they'd slide the filing cabinet out of the way. One of Gregory Remchenkov's assistants would pass the samples through this tube in the wall to someone waiting on the other side, a member of the Russian FSB, which is the formerly the KGB, now the FSB, which is basically the Federal Security Force or something of that title.
It's equivalent to our FBI, our CIA, our Department of Justice.
Yeah, basically your big blanket scary government kind of dudes. So they'd pass these bottles to an FSB agent on the other side who would be dressed as an electrician or a plumber. He'd put the samples in what looked like a tool bag. He'd carry them out across the street to an FSB building where those samples would then be switched with the same athletes, their samples that were already tested negative. It would be switched with these now negative samples and brought back to the lab. Remchenkov had nothing to do with the switching. He knew it was happening, obviously. Didn't know how it was happening, just knew you need to get these samples to this guy, and when they get back to you, they will show up negative. He said, okay.
The fact that the FSB, which is the Justice Department of Russia, was involved in this, scary.
Very scary. Very kind of point some fingers at some athletes. So, you know how we said there were 13 medals, gold medals won by Russian. According to Rodchenkov, 5 of those 13, the athletes were doping, which is almost half.
Almost half.
Which is not good. Very much not good. So, a lot of this information comes directly from Rodchenkov himself, who is currently hiding in the United States. He's not a true witness protection, but he has changed his appearance and changed his voice a lot of times for interviews. Very secretive man. So, the way this whole story broke in 2014 was WADA started investigating it started to come down that this was going on. The Russian, I wouldn't say government because it's never really stated who it is. Nobody's ever really said, but the Russians were very nervous, and Radochenkov started to fear for his own life. So he fled to the United States with help of director Brian Fogel, who shot a documentary about doping and the Russian doping scandal called Icarus. If you haven't watched it, go give it a watch. It's a long film. It's like 2.5 hours long, but every minute is worth it. It's very, very interesting. It gives you a lot of the same information I'm telling you, but goes into some more detail about actually the schedule and the amount of doping. I'm just focusing on specifically the Russians, but this goes into about doping itself, what it is, how it can be done, what it needs to be effective. So Rodchenkov flees to the United States, where he is now been hiding out since, which this is going on 4 years now since he fled Russia, I think. 3 or 4 years, which is a long time to be in hiding.
Mm-hmm.
All the while this is going on, the 2016 Olympic Games happened. A ban on Russia was suggested, but never followed through.
Mm-hmm.
WADA suggested a ban, the IOC did not approve, and they let Russian athletes compete in Rio, which is commonly believed by most people now that there were a lot of dirty athletes in Rio.
Mm-hmm.
And then come the next Olympics Games, 2018, in
Pyeongchang.
Yep, South Korea. That games, the Russian athletes were banned.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's very peculiar when you look at the 2018 games, because while Russia as a country was banned, a select amount of the athletes were allowed to participate under the OAR, the Olympic Athletes of Russia, who were also not clean at the time of their performance.
So the OAR competed under a neutral flag. They just literally competed under a flag that was the IOC logo, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the Olympic rings on a white background, and we're called the Olympic athletes from Russia, or of Russia. Very strange situation, but yes,
Mm-hmm.
one of the athletes did end up showing positive for doping, which is kind of unfortunate, because it does cast a bad light on the athletes as a whole. Some of the athletes have defected and were crucial parts when Congress was investigating the scandals, and have defected along with Radochenkov, and have given their statements of, here's what Russia's doing, here's how they're doing it, here's what they're getting away with. But the real crazy part about this, I believe, I don't know what your thoughts are, is according to the Russian government, everything we've just said is a lie. It never once happened. That Radochenkov and WADA are just trying to destabilize the Russian government and make them look like the bad guys, and deny Vladimir Putin or anybody else's involvement, even though Radochenkov claims that the Minister of Sports was getting fed information via Vladimir Putin would give the information to the Minister of Sports. Minister of Sports would give the information to Radochenkov, make a nice separation for himself there, I believe. But yeah, according to them, all a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that?
I guess what I would have to say about that is that when you look at doping in general, the Russian athletes, their viewpoint is that doping isn't wrong. It isn't a moral or ethical issue, which is all fine and well, but when you are a part of an international non-government organization with other countries, and there's a set of standards that everyone follows, and Russia is clearly violating them, that becomes an issue, because you're no longer following the ethical standards that just pertain to your country, but to the entire event.
The event. Kind of the idea of, if you guys believe doping's okay, then let's open it up for everyone. Let's just open the floodgate.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that stems back to what Radochenkov said. Putin's statement was for the games in 2014 in Russia was, win by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Win at any cost. So, terrifying.
Yeah,
Terrifying to think
scary
about.
stuff that the Russian government itself was involved.
We're almost done with time here, so final thoughts, Colin?
I guess I would just go back to what I previously said. If it's a moral or ethical issue, that Russia thinks that doping isn't crime, that's fine. But they're competing in something that isn't just Russia, and I think they need to respect these rules. And clearly, the suppression of evidence that they were involved in a doping scandal is incriminating.
Yeah, I believe WADA needs to take a stronger stance here. They actually just recently lifted the ban on Russia in international games, which is unfortunate, I believe. I think they should have taken a stronger stance and stuck by their guns and made an example of Russia to show what happens to athletes that dope and how you will be banned from future games.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your time. If you want to know more information, go ahead and watch the movie Icarus. Great film.
Recommend.
Highly, highly recommend. That's all we have for now. If we ever do this again, hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Bye.